And here's a quote that I thought some of the members might be interested in. It's from the 1986 Ministry of Environment document on the requirements of the Ministry of Environment for management of petroleum activity in northeast British Columbia. It's from the social credit era, and it's talking about cumulative impacts. It says, ideally, strategic planning precedes the sale of petroleum rights. This ensures all parties involved are aware of the concerns and constraints associated with development in an area before development is proposed. And Madam Speaker, that's really where the missing link is as we develop British Columbia's unconventional gas resources, particularly in the Peace region, is that we don't have an agency or an entity of government that is actually looking at the cumulative implications for water, for land, for health and safety, all of those things. And so the member from Delta South and I have been asking for a special committee of the Legislature to actually examine that. It's an appropriate public policy exercise for us.
Member for Peace River North.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to address the fracturing issues in northeastern BC. And also thank you to the member from Caribou North for bringing this issue forward, and Delta South as well. Now, Honourable Speaker, the member talks about water, and all of us were obviously very concerned about water, and that's one of the reasons that the oil and gas companies are taking huge steps forward in the water issues. He talks about the environment, Peace Environmental Society, sand, water issues, pipeline withdrawals from Wilson, and we're aware of all of those things, and we're working towards making those things happen. So let's see if we can address some of his issues. But first, before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about why the member opposite all of a sudden has decided to take such an interest in worrying about the great folks in northeastern BC. I mean, I'm happy you are, but I think that's why we have 85 MLAs, and I think I can look after my needs in that neighborhood quite well. I'd also like to ask the member opposite if he's going to be seeking election in northeastern BC next time round, or if he would be content in trying to represent his own constituents in the Caribou South, or Caribou North rather. And last time I checked, certainly they could use a little help in that area, and I think he should be dedicating his time to their concerns instead of grandstanding in this House about the northeastern BC. And Honourable Speaker, I'd like to ask the member from Caribou North when the last time he was actually in northeastern BC, and you know, I'd like to offer an opportunity to meet with the politicians up there and talk about that.
Could I remind the member of the nature of private members' business, please?
Well, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I'll certainly carry on and try to talk about...
and to speak through the chair, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let me just address myself to the chair. Thank you, Madam. I'd like to bring the member up and talk to some of our contractors in our area, and to talk to some of the mayors as well in our area, and see what their concerns are, and see if what he's bringing up is actually what they're concerned about in our area. I'd really like to go through that process, Honourable Speaker. So I offer that through you to the members to come up, and we'll bring you on a tour to our area and go through some of those problems with you. We talked a little bit about the Oil and Gas Commission. You know, the Oil and Gas Commission is widely known around Canada and, in fact, North America for the fantastic job that they do as regulators in our industry. They do a fantastic job. They got 250 folks working for the Oil and Gas Commission, and these are jobs that, they're not government jobs. These are jobs, these are fee-for-service jobs. So they go out, they inspect, they regulate, and every area in North America is looking to our Oil and Gas Commission when they set up their regulations. They do a darn good job, and I certainly think that they deserve that respect as well. Fracking is something that has been done for years in northeastern BC, many, many years. We started natural gas operations in 1957, northeastern BC, and we've been doing it for 50, 60 years, and doing it quite well, I might add. It's only the past few years, 5 years or so, that we've been doing multi-pad drilling. And you talked about the environment, but you forgot to mention, Madam Chair, he forgot to mention the fact that when you go to multi-pad drilling, you're using about 20% of the land that you use under conventional measures. 20% of that land, that's it. They're little tiny bit bigger pads, they're like 5 hectares instead of the 2 hectares that used to be, but you get 20 wells off of one pad. So your footprint is absolutely nothing. That's the kind of stuff we should be talking about in this House, and absolutely we better start talking about that sort of thing. I just want to talk a little bit. You talked so much about water. I want to talk about one of the companies. You mentioned Apache and didn't mention in Canada, but in Apache you talked about they have a joint venture up there. Apache and Canada have a joint venture. They drill into a DeBolt water system that is down. It's about 300 meters below surface. It brings in a saline water. It's bringing a saline aquifer that's down below the surface. Then they bring it up, they go through a treatment plant. They paid $30 million to build a treatment plant to do this. And Madam Speaker, the last project, the last frac that was just done by Encana in the Horn River Basin, they recaptured 90% of the water that they used from that saline thing. So, Madam Speaker, they are making great strides in looking after the water in our area, and I give them great kudos for that. One of the things we didn't talk about, but I'm sure it's probably coming, he talks about...
Thank you, member. Your time has elapsed. Thank you. The member for Caribou North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And where to begin on a response like that to a call for a reasoned debate? Number one, we don't have a balkanized situation where MLAs only represent their areas or areas of interest. BC's unconventional gas resources are distributed throughout British Columbia. They are owned by all British Columbians, not by the people of the Northeast. And any public policy that impacts that is done in this House in Victoria. So unless there's a House of the Legislature in the peace that only deals with the peace issues, it is absolutely appropriate for any MLA in this House to address those issues in this House. Second, Madam Chair, I did visit the Talisman site. I watched fracking operations going on. I visited the Williston Dam. I visited the Peace exit. I've been up through that area and intend to get back up again. The issue we have is whether or not the public policy we have is the right public policy for the expansion of this publicly owned resource in which all 85 MLAs have a responsibility. Otherwise, why do we have an energy minister from Langley? I don't understand that aspect of it. It must only have an energy minister from the Peace. Here's one statement that speaks to the issue of public policy. This is, again, from an entity established by the provincial government to give it advice on climate change issues. It states, the potential rise in emissions from shale gas will make it extremely difficult for BC to achieve its CO2 reduction targets. For the province to meet its legislated emission reduction of 33% below 2007 levels, it must reduce total provincial emissions by 33.6 million tons a year. However, our forecast shows that shale gas development alone would increase provincial emissions by almost 10%. That is a public policy issue because the government has mandated by law greenhouse gas emission reductions that its own entity funded by government says cannot be achieved by that one natural resource extraction activity alone. That's a public policy issue. And all I'm asking for, all the member from Delta South is asking for, and I would challenge the member, if there's nothing to hide, let's take a look at this as a public policy issue. We can either do public policy by protest, or we can do public policy by reason, debate, and dialogue with the public. That's really what's at stake here. And so what's wrong with a special committee to examine this? If the Oil and Gas Commission is solid, it will prove to be solid. If the public policy is a good, solid public policy framework, it will prove to be so. If we have baseline studies for water and our water utilization is appropriate, it will be proved to be so. There's nothing to be lost by having a more reasoned approach to this issue.
Thank you.